because the incumbent, they recognize the name somewhat. But Schmidt's known. You've run in this area before. Last year, what did you run for last cycle?
Senate 16.
That's why I got confused, Senate 16.
Good, all right, so it's recording?
I think it's Senate
Recording
16.
Yeah.
It always
Just wanna
confuses
make
me.
sure we're good.
I write the wrong things down.
Okay, so.
Oh, that's good.
How many Senate districts are there
There's
in
40.
the state?
40, aren't there?
Mhm.
What is it? In California, there's 40 and there's 80
No.
assembly.
No, in Nevada.
California, there's 40 and there's 80 in assembly. I don't know, how many are there?
There's 21. How many assembly districts?
Why do they have 40 then? They can't be 40.
No, it's not 40. It's
it
21.
42?
It's 20.
42
Yeah.
assembly?
There's
Twice.
2 assembly districts for every Senate district.
Right. Same in
They're
California.
wholly contained within.
Yeah, in California. And that's wholly,
No.
they're not contained within though in California,
Yeah.
aren't they?
Yeah. I'm not sure about California. I used to know.
I know there's 40 and 80 in California, so there's
But they don't overlap.
21 and 42 here.
That's a Senate district,
Yeah, half
2
and half.
assembly districts.
Yeah, I know it's just like, it's similar.
And so Senate 16 is
How can they
Assembly 40 and Assembly
I'm blind, but
26.
it's focused to me.
Oh,
So,
assembly 40, got
so
it.
Senate 16 was, I ran there twice
They change.
in Assembly 40 because Senate 16 included all of Assembly 40. With the exception of Story County because that was added to Senate
Right.
16 and to Assembly 40.
They
But
change.
that's my hometown.
So they ask you what's
A
the
good question
I'll ask,
is,
what's
what's
the
the
district?
district comprised of?
Yeah, so you're running for 40th Assembly District. Tell
Yeah.
us about the 40th and what it
Which one
comprises.
is there now?
It's all of
The
Carson
red one-
City.
The red one is the one
It's
gone.
all of Story County,
Yeah,
including
The green one
Virginia
is the one
City,
that's
where I
next to be hit cut all out.
reside,
And they'll ask you,
and
either cut-
southeastern
cut.
part of Washoe County.
See what happened?
70% of the voter base
And then
is in
2
Carson
and 3,
City,
'cause if you
10%
cut
in
again,
Story
it'll
County,
swap.
and 20% in Washoe County.
that's a good
So
question.
a
really,
portion
you wanna
of
start
Washoe
on
County.
2?
Here.
I did all this.
So you're
I
already
did
there.
like 5, 6, 7
You're
sheriffs. You
there.
get real good at
It's on
doing
2
it.
now, so you just hit cut. And then hit 1,
One, okay.
and then from now.
What
on,
are your-
hit cut,
what are your-
so
what are your
go back and
priorities?
forth between
What
the
are
two
your-
of them.
Whoever's talking.
Whoever's talking.
What are your
So-
priorities if elected?
Red one is,
Don't, no
Well,
reds,
the
just
first
cut the
priority
one
I
that
will
you
have
need
achieved by
Cut.
being elected. I will have removed
now, and then
the
cut it,
last
it just keeps talking,
turncoat
going back and forth.
Republican in the legislature that voted for the largest tax increase in the history of
Anytime you
Nevada.
hit
That's
so-
really
so
important.
So
At the
upon
beginning, at the beginning,
achieving
it's
primary
two,
I might talk.
victory,
Yeah.
my first objective will be achieved. And my primary objective
I'll probably screw it up.
in running for
Anything else
assembly,
worry
we
about?
have
My dad
two,
knows
we have
his
two,
job.
different camps. We have substance and we have
SIM
process.
card.
And I intend to focus more on process than on substance. I'll be good on the substance, but the Republicans are united on their substance, generally speaking, with the exception of my opponent. We support the Second Amendment. We're against all the loss of integrity in the election process that was voted in the last process. We oppose ballot harvesting, universal mail-in ballots, the failure to do signature checking, and we support voter IDs. We're for school choice and the money following the student through the parents.
You know, one word I would recommend you change instead of on ballots called I put unsolicited ballots. Unsolicited ballots. Because they're unsolicited, they just send them out. They're not
Right.
requested. An absentee ballot is requested.
Instead of universal
A
mail.
universal is like sounds like a nice thing. Unsolicited means you didn't request it.
Yeah.
So unsolicited ballots, meaning that people didn't even request getting an absentee ballot. They just get them. And they go everywhere. They get lost, they collect them, they do all sorts of bad things. So,
You know, I just checked the Secretary of State's site, the latest they have up on voter registration in Nevada.
Mhm.
It's down, I believe it was 36,000 from a year ago. And that's
I think it's better.
a sort of frightening figure because Not sure what the growth has been in that year, but probably 1%.
What was it before that?
But,
Just
but
last
uh,
year.
I don't have the exact numbers, but the fact that it's down
Less fewer registered
36,000,
voters?
where our population is probably up 40 or 50,000
Right.
in that year. So that's 70,000 bad registrations from last year to this year.
That they've got rid of, that they called out.
Yeah.
Because we know there are a lot of people who were out of state who voted too last cycle. They verified that. They checked the DMV. So let's start it. Ready to start, Chris?
Yeah, hit 2. Let's go to 2.
Where's my primary
I'll
camera?
talk.
Okay.
Mine's right there.
So-
Yours is.
We're gonna start with that, and then everything's just gonna be these 2 cameras.
So I'll look
afterwards.
at this camera. And then turn to this. Or you want to start with this camera? Look at me.
Mhm.
Well, this one right here, because I'll start it.
Okay. Let me start
And
there.
then move it over to here and then to Gary when he talks.
So,
Turn your
oh,
phone on silence. I put mine on airplane mode. Either off or airplane mode. That's not good. I get all mine.
You got 3 seconds. I'm in an interview on television right now.
Yeah, I'll start out with this one. Either turn it off or make sure it doesn't ring.
okay. So we're just gonna go back and forth. We'll just skip the middle camera then.
You can do the middle camera if you want to. I just want to start with this one so they're looking right at it, and then you could not do this one again.
Whoever's talking,
Okay, so you're gonna start with this one, and then
he's
and then,
on one.
and then we'll go to 2, and then
And then when Gary's talks, you can go 3 or whatever. Get a
So
feel.
they're gonna use two.
So I'm
2
gonna
is just for
I'm gonna do the
just to
intro.
show-
That looks really good. I like that shot of Gary really well.
Yeah, it's good.
We're gonna
It's a
have
good
this
shot.
whiskey bottle in the.
Yeah, leave it
in the
there.
scene.
It's okay. It's good.
It's not a whiskey
It
bottle.
looks like vodka.
No, it was a lemonade. It was a lemonade bottle, and we repurposed it into a water bottle.
It's really nice.
It was a fancy sparkling
You ready?
lemonade from Italy.
You ready, Chris?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Okay, I'm gonna start it. Welcome to Red Move, Nevada. We're gonna interview the candidates, and this is a system where we're going out and talking to some key candidates and some of the more contested and interesting primaries. Today we have Gary Smith. He is running for Assembly District 40. Gary, welcome to Red
Thank
Move.
you.
So I'm gonna start right away and just ask some basic questions about yourself. So I'm gonna ask some sort of out of order. You wouldn't expect these as a candidate, but you're from out of state and you moved to Reno. When did you move to Reno? And why'd you move?
1972.
So you've been here a while.
Yeah, yeah. And I moved because then Governor Reagan suggested to me that I might move indirectly.
That's it.
He was governor of California. I was residing in California. I was there since I was in seventh grade. And in addressing the California State Legislature, he said, if we don't do something about straightening out this mess of overtaxation and overregulation, people are going to start voting with their feet. And I took him at heart and I voted with my feet. And I got out of California real early.
I think that was good
Yep.
timing.
Yeah.
What was your business? What did you do? What did you do in the 70s and 80s? What's your business background?
Well, started out with the paper route and in grade school, and my last 3 years of high school, I worked 30 hours a week in a pizza parlor as a busboy and assistant pizza chef. I worked at Lockheed Missile and Space Company for 5 years out of high school while I went to college. I graduated from San Jose State University with a degree in economics.
Where was Lockheed at that time? Which facility you were at?
Sunnyvale.
Sunnyvale? Okay.
Yeah,
Cute.
Lockheed Missile and Space Company.
Yep.
And I worked in computers there. The last time I worked for a salary that somebody else paid me was in 1966, and at that time I left the Melonics division of Litton Industries, where I was a computer software design engineer. And I went into the concert production business, the nightclub business. I've farmed and I've ranched. I have the oldest pistachio orchard in Merced County, California. I still own it. I planted it in 1968. I've been in a variety of retail businesses, motel business, a lot of entertainment business. I've done a little record production, managed a couple rock and roll bands. Have a small RV park out of state. Been in the mini storage business, still am, and in retail and wholesale stationery supplies.
So I know probably the most interesting thing, I remember I interviewed you 2 or 3 years ago on Timelines, and you worked with some top groups, and I remember in Orange County, you worked with the Mamas and the Papas or something like that, if I remember right?
Yeah, well, Mama Cass, but I produced the first outdoor rock concert ever draw 100,000 people. It was the Newport Pop Festival.
Is that in Orange
Oh,
County?
It was
At the
at the
fairgrounds?
Orange County Fairgrounds,
Yep.
August 3rd and 4th, 1968. And we had a variety of top acts at the time. Sonny and Cher, Tiny Tim was #1 in the nation with Tiptoe Through the Tulips. The Jefferson Airplane, the Grateful Dead, Eric Burden and the Animals, Chambers Brothers, Country Joe and the Fish, Iron Butterfly, Paul Butterfield Blues Band, Canned Heat, to name a few.
Wow. So how long were you in that business in production?
Well, I'm for 40 years.
Oh.
Yeah, I was a longtime owner of the Reindeer Lodge on Mount Rose Highway, and we had our last concert up there about 15, 18 years ago. And I had a lot of acts up there over the years. I owned that from 72 till present, but it's now closed, and the roof collapsed on the building, and I've removed 90% of the building, and the property's up for sale. I also had a nightclub in Sunnyvale, California from 1969 to 1989. A few claims to fame there. Eddie Money worked there in 1973, I believe it was. Every Sunday night for a year, he did 4 sets. I paid him $135 a night, but did a lot of work with the Doobie Brothers, John Lee Hooker, Sons of Champlin, Lydia Pence and Cold Blood, the Tubes, Leon Russell, Edgar Winter, Van Morrison, to name a few. I could go on for a while.
So much.
Wow. That's very successful. I know you've done well, and that's probably the most interesting thing about your background is your relationship in the entertainment and production business. What was the one thing, this is the last question, we're going to go into politics, but what was the toughest thing about running a production company?
That's hard to say. It's running a production company is a lot like campaigning for office. You never get everything done, so you have to prioritize things. And there's always a list of more that you could have done or you would like to do. And I'm talking about concert events, because you have to set up for the concert. There's just a lot of details, administrative type thing. There's contracting, a lot of money going in and out, a lot of relationships built, and you work up to a date, and then all of a sudden the gates open, it switches mode. Now you're just managing an event for 4 to 6 hours, depending on whatever, and that's like election day. And then when that's over, you sit down for a few days and regroup.
So for a major event, how long does it take to put it together? What's the cycle?
It depends. No longer than 3 months, because
Really?
you're still dated. If you try and plan something 6, 8, 10 months out, the market's going to leave you, and
Wow.
it just you can't anticipate things that far in advance. It's different in the nightclub business. That if you have like a concert night or something, you do it every week. I mean, you're planning the date well in advance, but the actual what's going to happen that date is maybe 30 days in advance.
We find that with Red Move. We planned out all our debates well ahead of time, and they stayed pretty much on schedule, but the details really come down to the last few weeks.
Yeah,
Interesting. Very
it's
good.
the same.
I could talk in hours on the production business because we're in that business ourselves, but not at the level you were at. So going on to your campaign, why are you running for Assembly?
Well, let me just throw something out. I'm financing my own campaign because I can afford to. Not everybody can, but I can. The country's been good to me. The state's been good to me, and I just think we need honest, forthright, straight-talking representatives, not politicians, representatives. And I think the country's in trouble, the state's in trouble, and the people are not well represented. And I have the time, the tenacity, the experience, the education, and the drive to go and try and do whatever I can about it.
So, what are your top priorities when you get there?
Well, my top priority is to beat my primary opponent. I'm running against the last so-called Republican in the state legislature that voted for the largest tax increase in the history of Nevada, the commerce tax, after campaigning for a year and promising not to. And even to the point that he was at the Carson City Central Committee the night before the vote on that tax, again reassuring them that he was a no vote. And he met with the governor the next morning, and that afternoon he voted for it.
So, for those listening in who may not be familiar with what happened, what year was that? That was
That was 2015.
2015. So when I retired from the military, came to Nevada to raise my kids. Marino High School, wonderful experience. But the Republican Assembly, Senate, and the governor, everyone was Republican. Thought it was really cool. Thought we'd have a great state. And then all of a sudden, it took Republicans, 5 Republicans and the governor, to vote in the largest tax increase the state's ever had. And that torqued off so many Republicans, they didn't vote next cycle.
Yeah.
And now we have all Democrats in Assembly, Senate, and as the governor. It took 5 Republicans and the Republican governor to lose the whole state.
Well, it was more than 5.
I thought there were 5.
Five principal in northern Nevada. There were some in southern Nevada.
Really?
Also.
I thought there were only 5
but it
Assembly
was-
and Senate.
But they
Because they had to go over to the Democrat side.
The Democrats were all on board.
100% Democrats.
with the tax
I didn't
increase.
think I thought it was only
And
5.
it required a 2/3 vote.
Mm-hmm.
So it took a substantial number.
And-
I believe it was actually a total of 17.
I didn't realize it was that
Uh,
many. It
yeah.
was early on. It was very disappointing.
Yeah.
And what
I'm talking Assembly and Senate.
Assembly and Senate. Okay, it's very
Yeah.
disappointing. And I know that a year or so later, the people had just voted down a very similar tax.
A year or so prior.
Later, I mean earlier. Excuse me.
Earlier, yeah. There was a people's initiative on that tax, and it was voted down by approximately 80%, 84 to 1.
Right. I
And
remember
then
that.
the legislature took it up. And again, it was a so-called Republican governor that proposed it, that was Sandoval.
Now, tell us.
As a result of that vote by those Republicans, every one of them, with one exception, was voted out of office the next year, including my opponent.
Right.
He was voted out in 2016 specifically for that vote. He was censured by the Washoe County Central Committee and the Carson City Central Committee, which both those counties, a portion of Washoe and all of Carson, comprised that assembly district at the time, Assembly District 40. And the Carson City Central Committee, where he was a member, he was removed from the party. And he ran for re-election in 16, and he only got 25% of the vote. So some of those people that voted for that tax increase didn't run for re-election because they
Right.
read the writing on the wall and they weren't going to make it. PK could have read, my opponent could have read the writing on the wall, but he didn't. He only got 25% of the vote, but he did run and was voted out. Al Kramer was elected. Al Kramer served for 2 terms, and then on the last day of filing in 2020, Assemblyman Kramer announced that he didn't announce, but he made the decision, allegedly, on the last day, not to run for re-election. And there was communication between him and my opponent went in there and filed at the last minute and was re-elected for another term. So he's already been voted out of the legislature once for that vote. And it's my job, my duty, my obligation, my honor to remove him the second time. Because, the Republican Party, the 2 basic principles of the Republican Party are let people keep more of their money less taxation, and let people make more of their own decisions, less regulation. On a personal basis, it goes to all these medical mask mandates and all the stuff we've had recently. And in business, less regulation. And when somebody campaigns for a year as a Republican, a registered Republican, against a tax which is basically the largest tax increase in the history of Nevada, and then turns on the last day and votes for it, we can forgive him for that, but he should no longer serve in office ever again in the Republican Party.
Well, I know a lot of Republicans didn't vote for Republicans that cycle. They went independent or they just didn't vote. And
Yeah.
that's why we lost it. It's really important we come out and vote this next cycle. But so other than that, where do you want to go? How's the campaign going?
It's going well. There was the district has changed it a little bit.
Explain the district, yeah. Tell
yeah.
us where the area is.
I was in Senate 16 for many years, decades really, and I ran twice for Senate 16, which is comprised of Assembly 40, which I'm running for now, and Assembly 26. Each Senate district, there's 21 of them in the state of Nevada, is comprised of 2 Assembly districts, being there's 42 Assembly districts. But I actually moved out of the district about 3 years ago, and I moved to a vacation home, if you would, or a part-time home we had in Virginia City, which is Story County. But in the redistricting, this year, I didn't find out until January. The redistricting wasn't done until December of last year, of 21. They expanded as a result of the population shift, higher population, a stronger growth in southern Nevada than in northern Nevada, so the population has to be adjusted, or the districts have to be adjusted, so they're generally the same amount of,
People in each district,
in
right.
each Senate district and each Assembly district. So in the redistricting, Senate 16 and Assembly 40, both were expanded to include all of Story County. So I had moved out of the district, and then they moved the district back in underneath me. And I could have run for Senate 16 again, but I chose not to for a variety of reasons.
Well, I think you're trying to take out PK, or you're trying to take out your opponent. Who's
Yeah.
The one guy left. That's
And
interesting.
I was with other people before I knew I was in the district again. In the fall of 21, I was working with people in Carson City trying to get a viable candidate to run against O'Neill. And there were some possibilities, but as it turned out, by the end of the year, it had all dissipated because it's hard to run against an incumbent. You need a strong candidate to do it. You need somebody that's a proven campaigner, and you can't bring a greenhorn in to do that. And then over the holidays, I determined that when they announced the districts, that lo and behold, I'm in the district. They moved the district to include Story County, so I was asked to consider running, and I stepped up to the plate, and
Very good.
I'm campaigning hard, and I intend to do the job.
So we're running out of time. We've got a couple minutes left. I'm going to ask you one more question about this election. Now, last election cycle was insane. We had unsecured, unsolicited ballots. That means they mailed out to everybody, whether you wanted a ballot or not. People were collecting them. There was issues that people from out of state voted, 4,000 different places. What do you think of the last election in the voting process, and what can you do to fix it?
Well, it was
What do we have this year?
It was a disaster, and one of the things that I think we may be able to get through is voter IDs. I think we can get some bilateral support on that, but we're going to need to take control of the governorship and the Senate and the Assembly, probably to reverse that stuff, but it needs to be reversed. Some of it might be able to be reversed in court, like the lack of signature matching. Some of it gets into constitutional issues, and I support any and all efforts to set aside, those onerous, attacks and assaults on our election integrity.
Election integrity is, there's a lot of issues about the integrity of the election, and that could actually cause, in the general election, Republicans or you to lose.
Yeah, it could, and
So it's gonna be a tough
an
election
issue.
cycle.
It's an issue. But the other big issue to me is, in addition to the substance, is the process. The system in the state legislature is broke. They don't comply with the open meeting law. They've exempted themselves decades ago. My opponent, along with almost all other legislators in 2015, also voted to exempt themselves, the legislature, from the public records law. You no longer can get any of their communications to their lobbyists and their special interests that finance their campaigns, or you can't even get their personal schedules. You can't get any of their text messages because they exempted themselves from the public records law. You can get all that stuff from the governor, and you can get all that stuff from the clerk down at the DMV that waits on you down there. But you can't get it from your elected representatives in the legislature, and that needs to go away, and that can be done.
So
That can be
FOIA
done.
is federal,
Yeah.
Freedom of Information
FOIA is
Act.
federal,
So
and
the
then
states
in
have
the state
authority
it's
to do.
NRS 239, it's a public records
The
law.
NRS is right, and they
Yeah.
can control those more here and
Yeah.
shut things down.
Yeah.
That's true. The Brown Act, I think I forgot what it was, but open meeting laws,
Yeah,
those still are in place, right?
yeah.
Very
Yeah.
good. So is there anything you want to say in closing to the voter out there in
Well,
your district?
I've been fighting abusive, intrusive, arrogant, oppressive government for decades on my own dime and time. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the legislature on process, and I think I have the public with me. They're just not knowledgeable, and they haven't had a leader, someone to raise the issues within the body. And it tends to become a good old boys and girls club, and I'm not joining. I will represent the people, and I have no allegiance or my strings will not be pulled by special interests because I'm not accepting any donations from them. I'm financially secure, and I'm not into this for fame or fortune. I'm in it to give the people a real voice, and not just a voice, but to give them eyes and ears on the other side in the back rooms. And I will report faithfully to the people. Again, in my career in life, through life, I'm pretty familiar with publicity, newspapers. I was in the promotion business, and I can publicize or get publicized issues, and I'm not I'm not camera shy.
Okay, so in finishing, I just want to thank Gary for showing up today, and we're here, and by the way, we're down by the river in the Swanson facility, the Swanson Lane facility, which is wonderful. Thank you, Chris. And we'll get this interview up, and we'll see you at one of the Red Move event here shortly. And then bottom line, it's what I see for you, Gary. I said you're going to get elected first of all, and then and promote more freedom by reducing regulation, like we talked about, and more freedom and liberty and individual choice, lower taxes. Solid Republican.
Yeah, people say that you can't fight City Hall, and it's kind of true, but I can change some of that or a lot of that. You have to encourage people. Other people say, well, the people are not interested, they don't want to participate, etc. Well, they don't want to participate, or they fail to participate because they don't think their participation matters or is effective. But if you change some of the rules in regards to public record law, open meeting law, and the process at the legislature, and encourage, invite those people back in to the process, it will be, better, well-rounded, and people can regain their confidence in the government.
Well, thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Good job.
shoe claps to, I'm used to, in the old days, we used to do this to
Sync?
get the sync. Now we don't have to do that anymore. Our computers sync it for us.
Cool.
Iron Butterfly?
Yep.
They did a concert in my front yard in Topanga Canyon, 1960.